some money?
These were the unpleasant words suddenly thrown at me at the reunion. I turned to see who it was. There stood Emily. She had always been my archenemy. I work in construction. I got a job right after graduating from middle school. It's not that I didn't want to go to high school. I just wanted to make money. I figured I could study later. And I wanted to make life a little easier for my mom. We're a single-parent family. My dad passed away a little while ago. To be honest, I don't really want to acknowledge him. The thought of having his blood in me scares me. I think my dad was probably sick. He was really bad at expressing his thoughts with words and would quickly resort to violence. He would get angry over nonsensical things, and if you talked back, a fist would come punch. He blamed the world, us, and my mom for everything, and then he was gone, just like that, in a traffic accident. I was still a first-year middle schooler at the time, but I remember feeling liberated when I heard the news of my dad's passing. A small amount of life insurance money came in, but it was nowhere near enough for me and my sister to pursue further education. I wasn't particularly good at studying, but my sister was exceptionally smart. She enjoyed studying and was good at understanding and keeping up with any subject, always ranking first in our grade. She had been smart since elementary school, and that didn't change in middle school, so I wanted to give her the chance to pursue higher education. At the end of my third year in middle school, I told my mom I was thinking about getting a job. She looked at me regretfully and said,
But you're smart too.
However, when I told her that I didn't love studying as much as my sister did and that I could always study later, she burst into tears and thanked me. I realized then just how financially tough it must have been for her to raise 2 kids on her own, and I was once again impressed by her strength. I actually enjoyed construction work, and I didn't mind it. Of course, the summers were hot, the winters were cold, and working outside was tough, but I liked moving my body, so it suited me. I knew it wasn't a job I could do forever because it required a lot of physical strength, but I was able to get really into it. And that brings us to today. I found out about the reunion because I ran into a classmate. I was shopping at the supermarket when someone called out,
Hey, isn't that you?
When I turned around, there was my middle school classmate, John.
It's been a while.
Yeah. He told me he was back in town because his wife had gone back to her parents' house for the birth of their child. The realization that my classmates were now old enough to have children hit me hard, but before I could fully process it, he invited me to a reunion. I had liked my middle school friends, so I happily agreed. We exchanged contact information and went our separate ways. A few days later, he sent me the details, and I was excited to see everyone from back in the day. Thinking back, we did some stupid things and acted like fools, but we were so serious about it at the time. Despite everything, those were good times, and I had a great youth. I was grateful for those friends. Even though things were tough at home, I didn't mind it too much. I can go to school in the morning, so it's all good, I used to think. And then, at the reunion, I was called poor. What's that supposed to mean? I couldn't help but get angry and talk back. I didn't want to ruin the atmosphere of the reunion, but I also didn't want to let that comment slide.
It's just that construction work. Anyone can do it, right?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
But you can't do anything else, can you?
Her tone was clearly condescending, and I felt my blood begin to boil. Emily, a daughter of a company's president, has been pestering me like this since middle school, and I've always found her difficult to deal with. I heard she was going to be at the reunion, but it's been 15 years since then, and I thought she might have matured a bit. Turns out, she hasn't changed at all. The atmosphere turned sour, so I decided to leave. Just then, my arm was suddenly grabbed.
Do you need something from my boyfriend?
Huh? I thought, and turned to see, there was my girlfriend, Mia. The room started to buzz. Well, yeah. I can see why. I thought. A friend whispered to Emily.
What? She was a Miss Universe contestant.
Yes, my girlfriend was a contestant for Miss Universe. So, of course, she stands out quite a bit when she's among ordinary people. She also works as a model, so she's naturally beautiful.
Don't be too hard on my boyfriend, okay?
Saying that, Mia winked at Emily. Emily, who probably came to flaunt her status, ended up being the one put in her place, and she started to get angry.
What's this?
She said in a low, dark voice.
Why does a poor guy like him have such a beautiful girlfriend? Is this some kind of setup?
Poor. Him?
Mia said with a puzzled expression.
He's definitely not poor, you know?
Oops, I let it slip. I hadn't really been public about it.
What do you mean?
Now Emily was starting to panic.
He's a professional trainer, publishing books and sharing his methods. There's no way he's poor, right?
Professional trainer?
Yes.
Mia said. And then she looked at me with a
Right?
expression. I couldn't deny it any longer. After about a year working as a construction worker, I started to realize it would be difficult to keep this job in the long run. Of course, if I could maintain my current physical condition forever, there wouldn't be a problem. But the 40-year-old workers I saw were wearing supports all over their bodies, taking painkillers, and pushing themselves to work. Seeing them, and knowing that I needed to acquire other skills in parallel, I decided to seriously get into bodybuilding. I was naturally well-built and enjoyed physical activities, so it wasn't too much of a hardship. And of course, it was one of the few things I could do without spending money. It was also significant that I could teach my fellow workers that building more muscle could actually alleviate their pains. I was happy when the workers who trained with me would say things like, "This really does make me feel better," or, "My pain has lessened." It made studying and learning about bodybuilding fun. I started sharing my journey on social media. I wanted everyone to know the benefits of bodybuilding. Then one day, I was contacted by a publishing house.
Would you be interested in writing a book?
I was surprised by the sudden offer, but I accepted. I thought that if more people became interested in bodybuilding, it could surely make their lives better. The book sold well, and I started getting jobs as a trainer. Back then, I had obtained my GED and was attending a college for physical education, really getting a grasp on knowledge about the body. I had also started affiliating with sports gyms and collaborating on the development of supplements. That's when Mia came to train. She was slim and beautiful, seemingly uninterested in strength training, yet she was a hard worker. I was attracted to her, but I thought a beauty like her could never like someone like me, so I kept my feelings to myself. However, on the last day of her 6-month training program, she confessed her feelings to me, and, elated, I asked her out without hesitation.
So, are you rich or something?
To that, I responded. Well, I wouldn't say I'm struggling. I was still doing construction work at the time. I wanted to repay the kindness of the people who had taken me in, a middle school graduate, and let me work while attending college. Of course, I couldn't work as much as I used to now that I'm 30, but I plan to continue for a few more years. I will have to switch to being a trainer when it really gets tough, but surprisingly, I don't hate the lively atmosphere of the construction industry and enjoy working there. By the way, I'm also instructing guys who might hurt their backs or knees on how to move properly, and our company has surprisingly few accidents like slipped discs, something I'm a bit proud of. Financially secure, Emily, realizing she couldn't boast about money anymore, quickly left the venue. A former classmate asked me about my pen name for my book, and when I answered, they were shocked, saying,
You're the one who wrote it.
"Just don't spread it around too much, okay?" I warned, though it was a shot in the dark. On the way home, Mia said,
That girl has a crush on you, doesn't she?
but I neither confirmed nor denied it. Emily had confessed to me back in middle school, but I had turned her down. If she had been honest about her feelings, maybe things would have been different, but she was always so high and mighty, I couldn't bring myself to like her. I never thought she would bring it up again at the reunion. "Are you worried about it?" When I asked, Mia pouted a bit and said,
No. You're quite popular, aren't you?
"This girlfriend of mine, she's really cute like that." "Don't worry, I only have eyes for you," I assured her, and she beamed with happiness, saying,
Well, that's good then.
"She's really adorable." Later, I ran into Emily at the station by chance. She looked awkward, and all I could say was, "Hey," before trying to leave.
Sorry.
She exclaimed, grabbing my arm. Thinking it wouldn't be great to talk at the station, we went to a calm cafe instead.
I'm sorry.
She said, bowing her head, a gesture I found surprisingly humble.
I've liked you for so long.
And then, Emily started to talk. Back in middle school, she was standoffish and a bit shunned by everyone, but I treated her normally. She thought she would naturally go to a fancy university on her parents' dime, but she admired me for thinking about my life and making my own decisions.
But I couldn't express myself honestly. I'm sorry.
Emily apologized, her head bowed.
And about the reunion, I'm sorry for that too. I thought if you were struggling with money, I could help out and maybe we could get closer. But I get it now. Someone like you can make their own way in life.
Saying that, she smiled at me through tear-filled eyes.
I just wanted to settle things today. I've really liked you for so long. No matter who I met, I couldn't forget you. But I'll give up for good today.
I nodded. If she had confessed back in middle school, maybe things could have been different. She was that beautiful.
But I won't forget you. You taught me to make my own life decisions. I've decided not to take over my dad's company, but to start my own instead. I'm going to give it a try. Thank you for everything.
With that, Emily left, taking the check with her. That was the last I saw of her. "Daddy."
Mommy!
Mia and I were competing to get our newborn baby to say our name first. That moment, Mia pointed to the TV and said,
That's her.
The person on the screen was Emily. She was being interviewed as an up-and-coming apparel company CEO.
I make clothes that girls can wear beautifully without being too skinny.
That's what she was answering in the TV interview. She seems to be doing well. Mia noticed I was lost in thought.
I'm jealous.
You're kidding, right? Jealous in all this happiness? I laughed.
But she really has become beautiful, hasn't she?
Well, maybe.
Jealousy.
What do I have to say to get it right? The baby said. He just called me, didn't he?
What? That's not fair. Call Mommy too. Mommy too.
Trying not to laugh at my wife who was rubbing her forehead on the baby's nose, trying to get him to call her, I truly realized that one must carve out their own life. Little, tiny hands reached out to me. I hugged my wife and child, renewing my vow to cherish them for a lifetime. Tricking a woman like this, even in jest, really weighs on my heart, but I'll get down on my knees and apologize later if I have to. With that resolve, I made a fake confession.
Ms. Miller, I like you. Would you be my girlfriend?
Yes, please.
Huh?
I said yes, I will be your girlfriend.
I stared at Ms. Miller, dumbfounded. My name is William Johnson. I'm in my second year at a pharmaceutical company as a researcher. The reason I chose a research career is that I think I'm suited for quiet, diligent work by myself. I hate to say it, but I think I'm a bit of an introvert and slightly socially awkward. I've always been bad at talking to people and expressing my opinions. Before I knew it, I was avoiding contact with people as much as possible. Even though I've had friends, I can count my close friends on one hand, and naturally, I've never had a girlfriend. However, I do love animals, maybe because my parents run a veterinary clinic. I like how we can understand each other through feelings and attitudes without words. Actually, I wanted to become a veterinarian like my parents, but that meant talking about the symptoms in detail and communicating closely with the owners. I feel heavy just thinking about it. So I chose pharmacy and a research career, which it's still in the medical field. The company I work for is quite large, and most people have heard of it. They hire dozens of new graduates every year for sales and office positions, but research positions are more competitive, and they only hire when there's an opening. I was lucky to be hired in the year I was job hunting. Anderson, who was in the same university seminar as me, wasn't hired. He really wanted to join this company and ended up changing his application to a sales position, where he was hired. Anderson always barely passed exams, ignored assignments, and was frequently late or absent from classes. Even I thought his attitude was questionable, and he wasn't well regarded by our professor, who warned him several times that getting a research position would be tough. But Anderson, confident he'd make it, faced the interview only to be rejected, as expected. Anderson is the complete opposite of me, extrovert, sociable, always surrounded by friends. And also good-looking to boot. Naturally, we weren't close, even though we were in the same seminar. He looked down on me, calling me a loner and dull. He couldn't accept that I was chosen over him and bad-mouthed me, saying things like,
"Why would they pick that loner over me? I'm better than him."
Yet, somehow, we ended up as colleagues at the same company, in different departments. Anderson's reputation as a handsome and capable guy reached even my research lab. People say he's good-looking, does his job well, and has a great personality. As usual. However, people who are not directly involved with Anderson in other departments say this, but other colleagues in the sales department who are also involved seem to be disappointed by his outward appearance. He says things like sales is his job, so office work is for the admin staff, dumping paperwork and report making on them and always acting sweet around the bosses.
Seriously, it's so annoying how he just talks a good game and uses people.
Says Ms. Garcia from the sales department, who often complains about Anderson when she visits our lab. Garcia and I are from the same university but different course. Got to know each other after joining the company and hit it off well.
Just sweet-talking and flattering. Anyone would feel good being praised, so of course, they think he's nice.
Trying to avoid Anderson as much as possible, but he still holds a grudge about the employment exam and seems to have a competitive spirit against me, often bothering me. Every couple of months, there's a gathering for colleagues who joined the company in the same year. Anderson almost always organizes these events. I'm the only one from my year in the research lab, but there are others from my year in different departments like Anderson and Garcia. To be honest, I find it painful, even though it seems like a nice gesture to interact across departments. As I said earlier, there are no colleagues from my year in the lab, and I don't really have anyone I work closely with or rely on among them. Most are in sales or administrative roles, so our work is different, and we don't have much in common to talk about. I'm not great at socializing to begin with. I show up to these gatherings since I'm invited, but I plan to sit quietly in a corner and leave when it feels right. However, Anderson seems to find it amusing that I'm sitting alone in the corner, seemingly confused. He often steers the conversation towards me, joking, "This guy's socially awkward, you know."
And he's never had a girlfriend, never, right?
Making me the butt of his jokes. I could just not go, but my boss told me.
You're usually just with the old-timers in the lab, so go out and have some fun with your peers.
He sent me off with a smile at fixed hour, so I felt obliged to go. I just planned to find the right moment to leave early. About 20 people attend these gatherings. Sitting in corner, waiting for best time to leave. We're all in our second year at the company, so the atmosphere is still pretty much like a college party. Just when everyone is getting into it, a game of Kings starts. I have zero interest in these mixer-like games, but I'm forced to participate. With a bad feeling about Anderson's smirk, I reluctantly draw a number. Then comes a bizarre command: number 3 and 12 have to kiss. Number 3 is Garcia, and number 12 is, of course, me. But Garcia and I aren't in that kind of relationship, and she even has a significant other. So we both refuse, saying we can't and don't want to do it, but Anderson, gleefully, says,
"If you can't follow the king's order, then it's a dare. Johnson, you confess to Ms. Miller."
Ms. Miller is a senior colleague, known as the most beautiful woman in the company. She works at the reception, the face of the company. Tall, with a model-like figure, and obviously popular. She's turned down countless confessions and is out of everyone's league. As a researcher, I've never even spoken to her, let alone met her.
What are you talking about? Let's stop this silly game.
Garcia protests, but Anderson won't listen. He says it's my turn, so Garcia doesn't have to be involved. Just then, it's time for the event to end, and most people head to the after-party, but I go straight home. Anderson had been insistent, but I thought he'd forget about it after a few drinks in that party setting. But that wasn't the case. A few days later, Anderson comes up to me.
"Hey, Johnson. About that confession thing the other day, I've already emailed Ms. Miller to meet you after work today. It's happening today, and we'll be watching from the shadows."
He had actually emailed Ms. Miller behind my back to arrange the confession. He came up to me later saying,
"The confession is today, and we'll be watching from the shadows."
Annoying and extremely disrespectful to her. I'm sorry to involve her in this. But Anderson and the others are persistent, so I reluctantly agree to go through with it, swearing I'll never attend another one of these gatherings. The meeting spot Anderson chose is a cafe near the office. When I arrive after work, Ms. Miller is already there. Anderson and the others are also there, positioned nearby, snickering and spying on us.
You said you wanted to talk. What is it?
Ms. Miller, even towards a guy like me, responds with a smile. It's really hard to trick and tease a woman like that, but I'll get down on my knees later and apologize if I have to. Resolved, I make a fake confession.
Ms. Miller, I like you. Would you be my girlfriend?
Yes, please.
Huh.
That's right, I'd like that. I will be your girlfriend.
I'm stunned, staring back at Ms. Miller. Anderson and the others, too, are left with their mouths agape, shocked by the turn of events.
You're Johnson from the lab, right? I wanted to talk to you too. I'm glad about this.
Ms. Miller continued with a smile.
By the way, do you have time after this? Can you come to my house?
She asked, which surprised me even more. My mind was already in overdrive, verging on panic. But Ms. Miller took my hand and stood up, saying let's go. Even Anderson seemed shocked, silently watching as Ms. Miller led me away. The place she took me to wasn't far from the office, a house in a residential area. I had thought Ms. Miller lived alone, but it turned out she living at parents' home. Living together with her parents. And they had a large, elderly dog. Before I knew it, I was being introduced to her parents, and Ms. Miller said,
I heard from Garcia that you know a lot about animals. I'm worried about our dog, Max. He's been losing his appetite lately, and he's old.
It seemed she had planned to take Max to a vet but didn't have a nearby clinic, didn't own a car, and was busy with work on weekdays. She knew about me because I had once helped Garcia's sick pet with some advice. I've helped out at my parents' veterinary clinic and have some knowledge from my pharmacy studies. But I'm not a vet. Still, Ms. Miller insisted I take a look at Max. He wasn't completely down, but he did seem a bit lethargic, lying still even when a stranger like me approached. It was a tough call whether to take him to a clinic or wait and see. He usually ate dry food but hadn't been eating much lately. He is 12 years old. He was quite aged for a large breed. He didn't have many teeth left, which might have made eating dry food difficult. Maybe he had indigestion. I suggested trying wet food and, just to be safe, recommended a vet checkup. My family's vet clinic was a bit far but offered house calls and transportation. Upon hearing this, Ms. Miller eagerly asked if they could make an appointment, and I set it up for the weekend. Meanwhile, her mom soaked the dry food in water, turning it into a paste. When placed in front of Max, he sniffed it and then began to lick and eat.
Great! He's eating.
Ms. Miller said, her eyes glistening with tears of relief. Her parents thanked me, and I ended up being invited for dinner. I never imagined I'd be having dinner at Ms. Miller's house, with her and her parents, just a few hours earlier. Normally, I would have been too shy to talk much, but with Max as the topic and her dad also being in research, the conversation flowed easily and it turned out to be a really enjoyable evening. As I was about to leave, I remembered the forced confession and honestly explained and apologized to Ms. Miller. Turns out, she already knew the whole story from Garcia. She usually wouldn't entertain such a silly idea, but she wanted to talk to me about Max and took the opportunity. She had heard from Garcia that I was knowledgeable about animals and wanted to talk to me, but didn't know how to approach me. Ms. Miller is often perceived as an experienced girlfriend type due to her looks, but in reality, she's not like that at all. In fact, she's never been in a relationship, partly because people think that way about her and don't try to get close. She's actually just as shy as me about talking to people, which makes her receptionist job quite a struggle. She asked to transfer, but her bosses insist she stays for her looks. I was surprised to learn that Ms. Miller had a personality much like mine, which made me feel a closer connection to her. She seemed to feel the same, and we had a great conversation, unlike any first-time chat.
I wanted to talk to you, so this turned out great. I enjoyed it more than I expected.
She said with a smile. Even Anderson had no idea that Ms. Miller and Garcia were so close. Ms. Miller and I agreed to go to my family's vet clinic together over the weekend, and we parted ways for the day. The next day at work, Anderson and the others bombarded me with questions about what happened after. They even checked with Ms. Miller if we were seriously dating, and she played along, saying,
Johnson, are you really dating her? What's going on?
But I just played dumb. Then came the weekend. As expected, Max was having trouble eating dry food, swallowing it whole, and suffering from indigestion. He started eating a lot of wet food and regained his energy. My assessment was right on the mark.
As expected of you. I look forward to working with you in the future.
Ms. Miller said to me, and although I was embarrassed, I was still happy. But truly, this incident brought Ms. Miller and me closer. We continued to deepen our bond, playing with Max several times, meeting up with Garcia, and sometimes just the two of us. Having similar personalities, we understood each other well and felt at ease. Gradually, I began to see her as an indispensable part of my life. Garcia noticed my feelings for Ms. Miller and kept urging.
Hey, why don't you just make it official? If you don't confess soon, someone else might beat you to it.
But honestly, I had no confidence. However, encouraged by Garcia, who assured me it would be fine and that Ms. Miller was probably waiting for me, I finally mustered the courage to confess. She immediately said yes, and I felt over the moon. Since then, having someone we could trust gave us more confidence in our work, me in my research and Ms. Miller at the reception. We both seemed to become more proactive in our personalities. Whether it's because my confidence shows or maybe they're envious of me dating Ms. Miller, lately Anderson has stopped bothering me. It all started with a dare, but meeting Ms. Miller led to a positive direction. I cherish this encounter and want to continue being together.
Don't open it.
With those loud words from Mason, I instantly stopped my hand that was about to open it.
You scared me. What's up all of a sudden?
She looked desperate, unlike her usual self, and I involuntarily placed the souvenir on the table.
What's the matter?
When I asked her, she hurriedly showed me her smartphone screen.
You might be confused hearing this out of the blue, but I have a hunch.
What?
I couldn't grasp the meaning of her words, so I decided to ask her for more details. Then, she revealed something unbelievable. My name is Jimmy Anderson. I'm 37 years old. I have a wife, Mason, who is 2 years younger than me. Mason and I went to the same high school and were close friends since our student days. Back then, we had no romantic feelings for each other, we were just good friends. However, when I was 25, we happened to reunite at a local bar. We started dating, and leading to our marriage. She is an excellent cook and has a gentle personality. Whenever I come home from work, she always comforts me and waits with delicious homemade meals. She's a wonderful wife. However, for the past 10 years, we haven't been able to spend much time together. Because I was assigned to a 10-year overseas business trip by my company. I find my job fulfilling, and I was positive about participating in the company's expansion abroad, so I have no regrets. Being abroad was challenging at first due to the different languages and cultures, but now that the project has ended successfully, I'm glad I took part in the trip. Thanks to being able to take long vacations over these 10 years, I was able to see Mason occasionally. Although coming back home only once a year was the best I could do, she always welcomed me warmly every time. At the beginning of the long-term business trip, I was anxious, but thanks to her kindness, we've managed to maintain a harmonious relationship to this day. After completing my overseas assignment, I took a few days off, and I am now preparing for my return to the head office tomorrow by doing a final check on my report.
Are you still up? You have work tomorrow, right? Maybe you should go to bed soon.
While I was looking at documents on my computer in the bedroom, Mason asked me with concern.
Thanks, I'm fine. I'm just finishing up the report. I'll go to bed in a bit.
I replied and turned my attention back to the computer screen.
That's good to hear. It'll be nice to see everyone at the office tomorrow, won't it?
Yeah, I'm look forward to seeing them.
Hearing her mention the office reminded me of my colleagues in the same department. They are all nice people, and as their mentor, I've built good relationships with my coworkers. However, there's one person in the department with whom I just can't seem to get along. The sales department manager, Stephen Marshall. Stephen is 35, 2 years younger than me. He joined the company right out of college and quickly rose to the position of manager due to his talents. When I joined the company as a mid-career hire, he was the one who taught me a lot about the job. We had the commonality of attending the same high school, and I heard he was in the same class as Mason. It was a strange coincidence, and initially, I was happy about it. Coming into an unfamiliar environment, having someone with common ground made me feel more at ease. Stephen was very friendly and welcoming at first. But his attitude changed drastically one day. It happened shortly after I joined the company. I had completed the onboarding process and was about to start my actual work after receiving training from Stephen. We were chatting casually after the training when he mentioned,
"By the way, Jimmy, you're married, aren't you?"
Yes, we registered our marriage about a year ago.
He noticed the wedding ring on my finger and started asking about my married life and home.
"What's your wife like?"
After a brief conversation about marriage and home life, he asked a question.
Actually, she's a friend from high school. Coincidentally, she's the same age as you.
"Really? That means I might know your wife too, right?"
When I told him that Mason was the same age as him, he was visibly surprised.
Indeed. Do you know Mason Johnson by any chance?
The moment I mentioned her name, Stephen's movements came to a halt. At the same time, I felt the atmosphere in the room tense up slightly.
"Mason, is that true?"
After a brief silence, he whispered in a thin voice.
Yeah. Did you know her?
I felt the warm atmosphere disappear and asked with a hint of discomfort.
"Yes, we had a little interaction during our student days. I had no idea she is married."
And from that day on, his attitude towards me changed. Whenever I asked something about work, he would blatantly give me the cold shoulder, and on bad days, he would scold me harshly. There were also times when I wasn't informed about meeting schedules on purpose, leading me to be late. These actions by him, which could be seen as harassment, continued until the day I left for my overseas assignment. And this overseas assignment was initiated by him recommending me to the executives. When the company was looking for an employee to take on a 10-year overseas assignment, the sales department, including myself, had many employees with families, making it hard to find candidates. Seeing that, Stephen secretly recommended me to the executives. At that time, I had just moved into my dream home and had not considered a 10-year assignment at all. But by the time I realized it, the recommendation had progressed too far, and it was difficult to refuse. The day I was approached by upper management about the overseas assignment, I asked Stephen what that was all about.
Stephen, I just heard about the overseas assignment from the executive director. He mentioned you said I was volunteering for it. But I don't recall ever saying such a thing. What's going on?
I frantically checked the truth with him, as the story was unfamiliar to me.
What? You said you wanted to contribute more to this workplace, right? So I took the initiative and recommended you.
He replied with a smirk on his face.
Besides, you're almost 27, right? If you don't get promoted from team leader soon, you'll never make it in this career, you know?
Continuing, he looked at me with a dark smile.
Indeed, I do plan to contribute to this company in the future. However, with the recent purchase of my home, a 10-year assignment is difficult. It would also be a burden on my wife.
When I mentioned Mason, he briefly frowned.
Jimmy, are you taking your job lightly? It's naive to prioritize your private life at your age. You're almost in your 30s, right? It's about time you got serious about work. I recommended you thinking about your future, so a little gratitude wouldn't hurt, right?
I felt anger towards him imposing his views on me with a half laugh, but I clenched my fist and endured the moment. After that conversation, I left for my overseas assignment. As I was reminiscing about my interactions with Stephen in the bedroom, Mason came in again, looking concerned.
Jimmy, are you okay? You don't look so good.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Alright, I've finished the final check, and I'm going to bed now.
Saying that, I lay down in bed. The next day, I went to the head office for the first time in 10 years. After greeting the employees, I sat down at my desk. The office had changed over the past 10 years, with general redecorating and equipment updates. My desk had also been replaced with something as good as new. I took a moment to look around the office as if seeing everything for the first time. Then, I noticed Stephen arriving at work. He was holding a large paper bag in one hand. Perhaps he had gone on a trip somewhere. As I was thinking that, he began distributing the contents of the paper bag to the employees around him. After finishing distributing souvenirs to everyone, he came over to me last and took out a large box from the bag.
Good morning. Long time no see. Actually, I went on a vacation abroad last week. I got you a souvenir, so open it when you get home.
He said, handing me the box. The box was carefully wrapped so its contents were not visible and felt somewhat heavy. I was curious about the contents of the souvenir, but remembering that I hadn't seen him for a long time, I hurriedly replied.
Thank you. Good to see you. How was the trip?
He said it had been great. It seems he is in a very good mood today. I could tell from his smiling face and cheerful voice that he was in a good mood.
How about you? How was the business trip?
Well, it was tough, but we managed to complete the project as planned. I believe this will allow our overseas branches to expand their business even further.
We talked for a while about the overseas business trip. After going through the project details, he asked me a new question.
So, did you come back home while you were away on the trip?
Yes, I was able to come back a few times since I got to take a long vacation once a year.
When I told him that, he briefly raised the corners of his mouth and smiled slyly.
I see, it must be hard to come back from overseas often. But your wife must have had a nice break, right? I often hear that wives are busy with household chores every day when their husbands are around.
Yeah, I guess she enjoyed living in our new home at her own pace.
I replied, matching his question. I've thought it for a while, but he often brings up Mason. It's not too strange since they were high school classmates and knew each other, but there was always something probing in his eyes when he talked about her. Each time, I returned with non-offensive responses, but I wonder if I'm overthinking it. With that doubt in my heart, I finished my day's work and went home.
I'm home.
When I announced my return at the entrance, Mason came out from the living room.
Welcome back. How was it at the headquarters after such a long time?
Everyone seemed fine, which was reassuring. Besides, the sales department got 6 new employees. It was really lively thanks to that.
As I talked about such trivial things, I handed her the paper bag with the souvenir Stephen gave me in the morning.
This is from Stephen. He went on a trip abroad last week and brought back a souvenir.
From Stephen? It's quite big, isn't it? I wonder what's inside.
She gazed at the handed-over souvenir.
He said to check the inside once I got home. Let's open it now.
Saying that, I sat down on the living room sofa and started to unwrap the souvenir. Mason came next to me, watching closely. Upon opening the wrap, we found a flower gift with vividly colored flowers bundled together inside. Looking at the flower gift encased in a slightly thick transparent case, Mason and I looked at each other.
This is a flower gift, isn't it? Why would Steven choose a flower gift as a souvenir?
I don't know. We haven't told him our anniversary or anything, so it doesn't seem to be for a celebration.
While saying that, I somewhat hesitantly reached out to take the flower gift out of its transparent case. At that moment, Mason raised her voice loudly.
Don't open it!
Startled by her loud voice, I instantly stopped my hand that was about to open it.
You scared me. What's up all of a sudden?
Don't open it! There might be a listening device hidden inside.
Her desperate demeanor made me involuntarily place the souvenir on the table.
A listening device. What are you talking about?
I saw a post on social media a while ago about a listening device hidden in a souvenir from abroad.
While saying so, she hurriedly operated her smartphone.
Here! According to the person who posted this, they found a listening device hidden in a souvenir bought abroad. Apparently, there's been a spate of incidents where listening devices were found in flower gifts recently.
The social media post she showed me indeed contained information about a listening device being hidden and a person's experience of being victimized.
But I can't really see Steven doing something like that.
I tried to calm down her, also meaning to stay calm myself. Then she started to tell something unbelievable.
I know, it might be confusing to hear this all of a sudden, but I have a hunch.
I couldn't grasp the meaning of her words and decided to ask for more details.
What do you mean?
You know, Steven was in the same high school class as me, right?
Yes. Mason, Steven, and I all attended the same high school. I once had heard that Mason and Steven had even interacted in the same class.
Well, I was confessed to by him several times in the past. We were in the same class just once, but he confessed his feelings and asked me out about 4 times over 3 years.
I was speechless upon hearing her words.
It's all in the past, and I didn't want to worry you with such strange concerns, so I never mentioned it. I'm sorry.
But that's all in the past, right? He might not have those feelings anymore.
Trying to stay calm, I reassured her, but I could tell I was also unsettled.
It's not just that. While you were on your business trip, I found letters in our mailbox several times. They didn't have a sender's name, but they mentioned things from our high school days, so it might have been Steven.
Hearing those words, I found myself reflecting on his behavior up until now. His question today, "Had you returned home during your trip?" was one thing, but there had been several times in the past when he had inquired about family matters. After calming Mason down, I took her to the bedroom. According to her, she had found the anonymous letters creepy and had thrown them away. There was no evidence of the letters, but seeing her frightened expression at that time, I couldn't believe she was lying. Then, after she had fallen asleep, I rushed to the police station alone holding the flower gift from Steven. When the police examined the flower gift, they found a small listening device inside, just as Mason had suspected. I remember shivering involuntarily when the listening device was discovered. Immediately after, I filed a police report. I was really glad I didn't bring Mason with me. If I had, she surely would have been terribly shocked. After filing the report, I returned home. The next day, I tried to act as normal as possible when I went to work. The police had instructed me not to tell anyone about the incident, including Steven himself, of course. If I confronted him directly, it could provoke him and potentially lead to further harm. Besides, there was scant evidence to directly implicate Steven himself, so it was advised not to take any rash actions for time being. That was the conclusion reached after discussing with the police, so I went about my work calmly as usual. Time passed, and before I knew it, it was time to leave. As the office began to empty out with employees heading home, Stephen approached me.
Hi Jimmy, did you open the gift I gave you yesterday?
He looked at me with a face that seemed to be plotting something. He was smiling, but his eyes did not seem to smile.
Yes, I opened it. Thank you for the beautiful flower gift.
Thinking that I shouldn't let on anything was amiss, I responded with a non-committal reply as usual.
That's great to hear. I'm glad you liked it. I thought that flower gift would be perfect for your wife. I'd be happy if you could display it in your living room or somewhere.
Thank you. I'll discuss with her where to place it when I get home.
After that conversation, he left the office in a good mood. Once he had left, I felt my body relax. Well done. The conversation had ended without arousing any suspicion. After that, I went home. Mason seemed a bit unsettled in the living room.
Mason, are you okay?
Thank you. Ever since I heard about the listening device this morning, I've been feeling a bit uneasy.
I had told her about what happened at the police station that morning. I thought it was better for her to know sooner rather than later. However, seeing her unsettled state, I regretted telling her a bit.
Sorry for causing you trouble. It must have been hard on you being alone during the day.
She was working remotely at home while I was at the office. Even if Stephen was at work, after such an incident, she was bound to feel uneasy.
It's okay. If the police have accepted the report, they must be conducting a thorough investigation. More than me, you must have been scared today. Did he say anything to you?
Even in times like these, she was more concerned about me than herself. Hearing her words made me feel grateful once again for being with her.
He just asked if I had opened the gift. But besides that, nothing much. From his expression, he seems to think the flower gift is still at our house.
After I shared that, Mason seemed a bit relieved and went back to the kitchen. 3 days had passed since I returned to work at the headquarters, and it was my first day off. For some reason, I woke up earlier than usual that day, and was drinking coffee alone in the living room. Then suddenly the doorbell rang.
Who could it be this early in the morning?
Simultaneously, I checked the time. It was almost 7 a.m. Feeling suspicious, I slowly made my way to the window. Then, I heard someone pounding on the front door. The knocking was forceful, indicating this was no ordinary visit. In a panic, I checked the outside from the window. Stephen was there. Even as I checked, the knocking didn't stop. Concerned about disturbing Mason and the neighbors, I mustered up the courage to open the door, keeping the stun gun with just in case.
Stephen, what brings you here so early in the morning?
I asked tentatively, and he turned a sharp gaze I had never seen before on me.
You told the police, didn't you?
With those words, I realized everything.
Last night, the police came to my house. They said I might have planted a listening device in the flower gift I gave you, and because of that, I was interrogated until dawn.
His eyes were bloodshot, looking like he might lash out at any moment.
Please, calm down. I only asked the police to check if there was a listening device. If you're truly innocent, the investigation will prove it quickly, right?
As I said that, he started muttering to himself, looking down.
You're always like this, acting calm and looking down on me. Even if I harass you, you face it with a nonchalant attitude. Why did Mason fall for a guy like you? Why am I not good enough?
His words were filled with clear jealousy towards me and affection for Mason. Then, I heard footsteps coming from inside the house.
Jimmy. Who are you talking to?
Hearing Mason's anxious voice, I quickly told her,
Go back to the bedroom.
But Stephen spotted her through the gap in the door by hearing Mason's voice.
Mason, why did you go to the police? I just wanted to protect you.
What? Stephen, why are you here?
Mason showed her unease at the unexpected visitor.
Stephen, did you just admit to planting the listening device?
Yes, I did. But calling it a listening device sounds so negative. I sent it to protect Mason.
I see. Well, now that we have evidence and recordings, I'll be reporting this to the police.
What?
With that, I called the police from my phone. Soon after, the police arrived at our home, and Stephen was taken to the police station. The smartphone's recorded audio confirmed his confession, leading to his arrest. 2 months later, the incident with Stephen became widely known within the company, resulting in his dismissal. During the police investigation, Stephen admitted he had harbored feelings for Mason since their school days and couldn't stand seeing a subordinate happily living with the woman he loved. Further investigation at his house found several draft letters addressed to Mason. That resulted in his being sentenced to prison, bringing the situation to a peaceful resolution. Mason and I continue to live happily in our home. And once work had settled down, we finally completed all our moving tasks.
Mason, are you feeling all right?
Yes, I'm fine. The doctor said the baby is growing well.
Mason said with gently stroking her belly.
That's good to hear. Let's keep building a happy family together.
Yes. With you, I'm sure we can build a wonderful home.
We smiled at each other, sharing a moment of happiness.